All right, welcome to another deep dive. This time we're diving deep into Michelle Obama's memoir, Becoming.
A fascinating read for sure.
It really is. We're going to try to unpack the core themes of the book, try to connect those with what's going on today, and most importantly, think about how you can actually apply what she talks about to your own life.
It's a story that goes beyond politics.
Yeah.
It's about family, ambition, race, finding your voice when maybe the world doesn't want to hear it.
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting that the book starts way back when Michelle was growing up on the south side of Chicago. Did you know that she actually lived in the same house as Jesse Jackson's family?
For a while, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, imagine those dinner table conversations.
Right. It speaks volumes about like the environment that shaped her worldview. Imagine being surrounded by these conversations about social justice, activism, all from a young age.
Yeah, it makes sense that she ended up with such a strong sense of community and a passion for making a difference.
Yes.
And, one thing that really stood out to me was how important family is to her.
Yeah.
She talks about her father's work ethic, even as he's battling MS, and her mother's, like, just unwavering belief in her and her brother, Craig.
And it's a reminder that those early experiences, those small moments, they can really have a ripple effect on your entire life.
For sure. I mean, it really does feel like those values get, like, baked into your DNA,
You did say that.
And I thought it was really interesting how those values show up in her approach to education, too. Like
Yeah.
when she's talking about her time at Bryn Mawr Elementary.
Yeah.
Her mom actually had to advocate to get her moved from this chaotic, really overcrowded classroom.
That's right, yeah. And that anecdote, it really highlights the power of advocacy. Even in a seemingly small situation, speaking up can make a world of difference.
Absolutely. It's like that saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Sometimes you got to make a little noise. And Michelle's determination, it didn't stop there. It continued all the way to Whitney Young High School.
Where she really started to, grapple with issues of race and privilege.
Yeah, and I think it's a real turning point in the book because it's where she starts to understand those systemic inequalities and how they affect opportunities. And then, of course, she goes on to face that incredible challenge of applying to Princeton. A high school counselor actually tried to discourage her.
It's unfortunate, but it's more common than we like to think. It shows you the biases that are still out there, even in education, and why it's so important to defy expectations.
Right, and of course, Michelle did go to Princeton, excelled there, and even found love with her first boyfriend, David.
Right.
Though, as we know, that chapter eventually closes.
Well, yeah, it's something a lot of people can relate to, I think, navigating those early relationships and realizing that sometimes paths just diverge.
Totally, and for Michelle, that next door that opened led her to Harvard Law School.
Where she really came to this understanding that her passion wasn't just about law itself, but using her skills to make a real difference.
To really make a difference in the world.
It's a great example of how sometimes you discover your true calling through exploring and maybe even a little trial and error.
Yeah.
And I think, it's how she ended up at Sidley in Austin, where she met, a certain Barack Obama.
Yeah, and it's so funny how she describes him this summer associate with a unique name, she says.
Right.
And this smile, she says, that could melt a polar ice cap.
It is fascinating how she initially resisted him, though. She was so focused on her career, she actually even put off reading this legal memo that he wrote specifically to impress her.
Right. But as their paths kept crossing, they connected, and not just romantically. They had this shared passion for social justice, for community work.
It's like their shared values formed this connection between them.
Definitely. And Barack wasn't just all talk. He introduced her to a different side of Chicago, taking her to these community organizing meetings.
Showing her what grassroots activism looks like.
Right, and I think that really broadened her perspective on how you actually create change. And then they take this really powerful trip to Kenya, where Barack's surrounded by all of his extended family. It's like seeing him totally in his element, connected to his roots.
It was symbolic on so many levels, that trip.
Absolutely. And, not long after they tied the knot in a beautiful ceremony.
At Trinity United Church of Christ.
It was the start of this new chapter for them, but it wasn't all smooth sailing.
No, and Michelle's really open about the challenges of balancing their ambition, being in a partnership, especially when you're both driven individuals.
And she initially had a lot of trouble with the whole corporate world. She was definitely feeling this pull towards something more fulfilling.
Like a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's this question of how do you find that balance between feeling fulfilled personally and also having success in your career. And for Michelle, she really had to take a risk. She leaves the corporate world to lead public allies.
An organization all about empowering young people in public service.
It feels like that was a real turning point in her career,
I think so.
where her values and her skills really came together.
Yeah.
And it's during this time that they're also facing another huge challenge, starting a family.
Mm-hmm.
Michelle is incredibly brave in sharing her struggles with infertility.
Right.
The heartbreak of a miscarriage, the emotional roller coaster that comes with all of it.
It's a side of her story that we don't often hear.
And I think her honesty about all of it is so powerful because it really normalizes these conversations.
Definitely.
About infertility and miscarriage, which unfortunately are still shrouded in so much silence. And thankfully, their story doesn't end there.
Right.
They eventually welcome these two beautiful daughters into the world, Malia and Sasha.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, as Brock's political career takes off, he's a state senator, then a U.S. senator, it becomes even harder to juggle family life.
It's something so many couples can relate to, when one partner's career just demands so much time.
Absolutely. And I think, it's a conversation so many women are having. Like, how do you juggle ambition and family? How do you support your partner's dreams while also still going after your own?
And as we'll see, these challenges only get, more intense. Barack's ambition takes him all the way to the White House.
Yeah, things are about to get really interesting.
Welcome back to the deep dive. So we left off with the Obamas about to move into the White House.
It's like a total whirlwind.
It really is. It's a transition that very few people can really understand. But Michelle's book, it gives us a glimpse behind the curtain,
It's like you're stepping into a history book, but instead of dusty pages, you've got Secret Service and fancy state dinners.
Right.
And you know what her first thought was when they walked in?
What's that?
The stairs. All the stairs.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of a funny reminder that even in this really grand setting, life is still life.
It's that kind of down-to-earth quality, It makes her story relatable. She's not just this, figurehead. She's a wife, a mom. She's trying to keep things normal for her family.
Right. And she was really adamant about her daughters attending Sidwell Friends School.
With its Quaker values of community and equality.
Yeah. And that's not exactly your typical public school, right?
No.
It shows that she was really trying to prioritize her daughter's well-being, even with all the pressure of the White House.
Absolutely. And don't forget, her mom, Marion Robinson, moved in to help with the girls.
That's true. I mean, that's family support on a whole other level.
Right. And I think it speaks to that idea, of having a solid support system, especially when you're in unfamiliar territory.
For sure.
And, this transition wasn't just about a new home. It was about figuring out what it means to be First Lady.
And let's be honest, that traditional image, the tease, picking out China patterns, that wasn't really Michelle's style.
She wanted to make a real impact.
She did.
She launched initiatives. She focused on healthy eating, military families, education.
Yeah, and I think it's important to point out that Let's Move, that wasn't just some fluffy campaign.
Oh, no.
This was about childhood obesity, access to fresh food, even healthcare costs.
And she tied all of those things together, which I think resonated with people.
Absolutely. She was speaking from her own experience as a working mom.
Right.
And I love how she got the White House chefs to completely revamp the menus.
More fresh ingredients.
Fresh ingredients. They planted that famous vegetable garden on the South Lawn.
Which, they were actually eating from that garden.
It was more than just a photo op.
Right. It was a powerful visual, It showed people that eating healthy, it's not this abstract thing.
You can literally plant the seeds for it.
Exactly.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And her work with military families was just as impactful.
Oh, yeah. She really understood the sacrifices that they make and wanted to make sure that they felt supported.
And again, it wasn't just sending a thank you card. She visited military bases. She listened to their stories.
She advocated for programs
Yeah.
that addressed their actual needs,
Yeah.
Healthcare, education, job opportunities.
And it was a team effort. She worked with Dr. Jill Biden on a lot of those initiatives.
Right. She understood that collaborating, could make a much bigger impact.
Bring more attention, more resources to the issue. And of course, being First Lady wasn't just all policy and initiatives.
No, she brought fun to the role.
She did. She had great style.
Right. Her fashion choices became a way for her to, express herself, celebrate diversity.
She was not afraid to take risks.
Not at all. And it wasn't just about clothes either.
No.
She made the White House feel much more accessible.
Yeah, all those events for kids, supporting the arts. It was like she was throwing open the doors and saying, hey, This place is for everyone.
Exactly. And, with all the formality, Michelle never lost sight of being a mom.
Right. And she even took Malia to a Beyonce concert.
Imagine that.
Talk about mom goals.
Right.
It shows that you can be this powerful figure on the world stage and still enjoy those normal moments with your kids.
Absolutely. But life in the White House, it wasn't without its challenges.
No, and she talks about the constant security, the media always watching.
The pressure to always be on.
And all of that was made worse by the racism and sexism that she faced as a Black woman in such a visible position.
Right, those early labels.
Being called angry, unpatriotic.
Just for speaking her mind.
Yeah, and I think it's a stark reminder that no matter how much success you achieve, systemic biases don't just go away.
And she didn't let those criticisms define her, though. She responded with such grace and resilience.
She used her platform to challenge those stereotypes.
And advocate for equality and understanding.
She turned those labels into fuel.
Yeah.
And she showed the world that you don't have to shrink yourself. You can be your authentic self, speak your truth.
And still make a difference. And she did all of that, while still maintaining a sense of humor and perspective.
Right.
Remember that anecdote about sneaking out with Malia to see the rainbow lights on the White House?
Oh, yeah.
Celebrating marriage equality.
It's just this great reminder that even amidst serious issues, there's always room for joy, for celebration.
Absolutely. And speaking of doing the work, Barack, he gets reelected for a second term.
Can you believe it? 4 more years?
It was a real testament to their impact, but it also meant 4 more years of that pressure and scrutiny.
And Michelle admits it was bittersweet.
Yeah.
Because even though she was so proud of everything they had accomplished, life in the White House, it's not forever.
It was a chapter that was coming to a close.
And as they started that second term, Michelle just kept pushing forward, advocating for gun control, education, women's empowerment.
She was using her platform to make sure that the voices of people who are often marginalized were heard.
She was really making the most of her time.
Yeah.
And as their time in the White House came to an end, Michelle reflected on their legacy. She really hoped that they had made a difference for the country.
That they'd paved the way for future generations.
Yeah, it's this reminder that leadership, it's not just about having a powerful position. It's about using that power to lift others up, create opportunities.
Leave the world better than you found it.
Yeah. And of course, Michelle's story doesn't end there.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the deep dive. So we're wrapping up our exploration of Michelle Obama's becoming. And, I've been thinking about, after 8 years in the White House, how do you even begin to transition back to, a normal life?
It's a question a lot of us probably wonder about, right?
Yeah.
We see these images of presidents and their families leaving, and it's like, what do they even do next?
Yeah.
But, Michelle, she didn't just disappear.
No.
She kept using her platform, to champion these causes that she cares about, but now it was on her terms.
Right. It's like she took all that experience from being First Lady and turned it into something new. So what has she been up to?
Well, she wrote another book.
Nope.
It's called The Light We Carry, and it became a bestseller. It's really about, how to navigate uncertainty, finding strength during difficult times, and connecting with other people.
So it's like she's giving us her tools for resilience.
Exactly, which is, something we all need right now.
Oh, absolutely. And she didn't stop there,
Yeah.
right? She also launched the Global Girls Alliance.
Right, which focuses on empowering girls around the world through education.
It really emphasizes her belief in the power of education.
Especially for girls. It's about breaking down barriers, creating opportunities.
And investing in future generations. And of course, we can't forget about her work with Barack. They started their own production company.
Fireground Productions.
Right.
And this lets them amplify diverse voices, tell different stories.
Through film, television,
podcasts. It's a really creative outlet,
Yeah.
And it fits perfectly with their commitment to social impact and storytelling.
Yeah, it's like they're using their platform to show different perspectives, make space for stories that haven't always been heard. And through all of this, Michelle is still a mom, right? Navigating those joys and challenges of watching her daughters grow up.
She talks about that feeling, seeing them go off to college, become independent.
Right.
It's bittersweet.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that every parent can relate to.
Absolutely.
Letting go, trusting that you've given them what they need to succeed.
Right.
And all you can do is cheer them on from the sidelines.
Right.
But it's not just about her kids. Throughout Becoming, Michelle shares these broader lessons that she's learned.
About resilience.
Yeah.
The importance of having those strong relationships, being your true self.
And using your voice to make a difference.
Right.
And, I think one of the biggest takeaways is this idea that becoming, it's not a destination. It's a journey, right?
It is.
And it's a journey with all these twists and turns.
It's about embracing those changes.
Learning from every experience, good or bad.
You're constantly evolving.
Yeah. And it's okay that we're all works in progress.
Right. That's what makes life interesting.
It does. And I love that quote, life is a journey, not a destination. Michelle's story reminds us that the journey itself is so important.
It is.
It's in those, messy moments that we really figure out who we are, what we're made of.
It's powerful stuff. So Michelle Obama's story, it's about hard work. It's about determination. It's about using your voice to stand up for what you believe in.
It's a reminder that we all have the power to shape our own story.
Yeah.
And you never know. Maybe your story will inspire someone else to start their own journey of becoming.
And that wraps up our deep dive into becoming. We hope this conversation gave you some things to think about, maybe even inspired you to pick up the book.
You can find a link to buy it on Amazon in the show notes. And if you like these deep dives, don't forget to subscribe to our One Book a Day YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us.